at her college reunion. She told her friends, "Maybe I married too young." They all nodded, like it was some agreed-upon fact. I was standing right there. I waited a beat, and then I said, "It's never too late to fix a mistake." And I just walked away. I heard one of her friends whisper, "Oh my God, was he serious?" My wife's reaction, that expression, it was priceless. You're going to want to see how this all unraveled. This is Inspiration Seeker. If you believe that finding your own self-worth is the most important journey, make sure you subscribe to our channel, like this video, and comment below with one word: respect. Now, let me tell you how we got there. The disaster didn't start at the party. It started 3 hours earlier in the car. The 3-hour drive from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. felt like a cross-country trek. The air inside our new Lexus was recycled and sterile, but the tension was so thick you could practically see it, like humidity fogging the windows. My wife, Dr. Elena Vance, wasn't looking at the scenery on the I-95. She was looking at me, or more accurately at my clothes. "Mark, seriously? That tie?" Her voice already had that sharp, polished edge. The one she used on her wealthy cosmetic dentistry patients, not the one she used on me. Not anymore. "What's wrong with it?" I asked, keeping my eyes on the road. "It's from that firm," she said. She didn't have to say nonprofit. She spit the word out like it was a piece of bad food. "It looks earnest. Can't you just wear the new Zegna I bought you?" "This one is fine, Elena." She let out a long, practiced sigh, the sound of a woman deeply burdened by my lack of ambition. This was the opening act. The main performance was still to come. She pulled out her phone, not for navigation, but for her notes app. "Okay," she said, all business. "Let's go over the talking points again." I wanted to tell her I wasn't being deposed. I was just her husband. But I knew the drill. Rule 1, she recited, we talk about the new practice expansion in Rittenhouse. We don't talk about the initial funding issues. Rule 2, when people ask what you do, you say commercial construction management. You do not say building low-income housing. It makes us sound like we're struggling. It's confusing. I glanced over. She was flawless, already wearing her Georgetown armor. Hair perfect, makeup immaculate. A woman who had clawed her way up from a working-class background and was now terrified someone might see the dirt still under her nails. "And Rule 3, she said, locking her phone and finally looking at me. "Julian Hayes will be there." Ah, Julian, the ghost at our wedding. The New York hedge fund manager she almost ended up with. Just be nice. He's a big deal. Try to look impressed. It's important for me. I didn't answer. I just gripped the steering wheel a little tighter and merged into the fast lane. I wasn't her husband on this trip. I was her prop, a supporting actor cast in the wrong role, and she was already worried I'd forget my lines. The ballroom at the Georgetown Hotel was exactly as pretentious as I'd imagined. The ceilings were painted with frescoes, the chandeliers were probably genuine crystal, and the air hummed with the sound of privileged, braying laughter. The transformation in Elena was immediate. The second we walked through those grand oak doors, the anxious wife in the car disappeared. She was replaced by Dr. Vance, the reunion queen, her posture straightened. A bright, dazzling, and completely manufactured smile locked onto her face. "Amanda, David, you look exactly the same." She grabbed my hand, but it wasn't a gesture of affection. It was a gesture of possession. She was towing me, her one slightly embarrassing accessory. "Everyone, this is my husband, Mark," she'd say, her voice high and bright. I'd get that standard, evaluative look, the quick up and down scan. They'd see my earnest tie, my simple suit, and their eyes would glaze over. "He's in commercial construction management." Elena would jump in, using our approved script before I could say the wrong thing. "Oh, how fascinating," one woman said, already looking over my shoulder for someone more important. And then I saw him, Julian Hayes. He wasn't just in the room. He owned his corner of it. He wore a suit that probably cost more than my last 2 mortgage payments, flashing a watch that gleamed under the lights. He had that easy, arrogant confidence of a man who has never, not once in his life, been told no. "Elena!" he boomed, spreading his arms. "There she is." And just like that, my hand was dropped. Elena melted into his embrace, laughing at something he whispered in her ear. She was immediately absorbed into his circle, the hedge fund guys, the lawyers, the future politicians. My wife, glowing right in the center of it. I did what I always do. I became a ghost. I nodded to the group, muttered, "I'm going to grab a drink," and just drifted away. No one noticed. I made my way to the bar at the far end of the room, ordered a club soda with lime, and just watched. I watched my wife perform. I watched her laugh and flirt, and bask in the attention of the man she always described as the one that got away. I was just a backdrop, the wallpaper, and from the shadows of the bar, I had a perfect view of the patio where it would all come crashing down. After about an hour of nursing that same flat club soda, the noise of the ballroom felt like it was pressing in on me. The laughter, the clinking glasses, the endless performance of success, it was suffocating. I needed a minute. I needed air. I spotted a set of heavy French doors leading to a stone terrace, a refuge from the noise. I pushed one open and stepped out into the cool, damp Washington, D.C. night. The air was a clean relief. I walked away from the light, past some sculpted hedges, and found a quiet spot in the deep shadow of a large brick pillar, just looking out over the city. I was finally starting to feel my shoulders unclench. And then I heard her laugh. Not her real laugh, but the high, airy one she used for clients and important people. I froze. They were just around the corner, seated at a wrought iron table, with a single candle flickering between them. Elena, Julian, and two of her closest college friends. They were sharing a bottle of champagne, completely oblivious to me standing less than 20 feet away, hidden by the architecture and the darkness. Julian was in the middle of a story, clearly bragging about his new acquisition in the Hamptons. One of the friends, Amanda, sighed. "Ugh, Julian, stop. You're making us all look bad." She turned to Elena, raising her glass. "Except for Elle, of course. She's the only one who actually got it all. The booming practice, the gorgeous house, and a sweet, devoted husband. You just locked it all down." There was a pause, a silence that lasted just a second too long. Elena took a delicate sip of her champagne. "He is sweet," she said, and the way she said it, it was a consolation prize. She leaned in, her voice dropping, conspiring. "But, sometimes I look at you guys, still in the city, making moves, and I just think..." She sighed, a long, dramatic exhale. "Maybe I married too young. I rushed that part. The other women nodded in understanding, sympathizing. Julian didn't miss a beat. He placed his hand on her arm, a casual, proprietary touch. He smiled that smooth, predatory smile. "We all make compromises, Elle," he said, his voice like velvet. "The important thing is realizing when a compromise is just a mistake." A profound, cold stillness settled over me. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was clarity. The fog I'd been living in for years suddenly evaporated. I wasn't her husband. I was her compromise. Her mistake. And I finally knew exactly what I had to do. For one long second, I just stood there in the shadow of that pillar, letting their words hang in the humid night air. A mistake. I took one step forward, out of the darkness and into the dim glow of the terrace. The leather sole of my shoe made a single, soft scuff on the bluestone. It was louder than a gunshot. The laughter and conversation at the table didn't fade. It cut, sliced clean off, for faces, lit by that single flickering candle, snapped toward me. Julian's face tightened with annoyance, as if a waiter had just spilled a drink. Elena's friends just looked confused, their smiles frozen and awkward. But Elena, her eyes locked with mine, the blood visibly drained from her face. The brilliant Dr. Vance mask didn't just slip, it shattered, revealing the terrified, panicking woman underneath. Her mouth fell open slightly. She knew I had heard everything. I let the silence stretch. I let it hang there for 1, 2, 3 brutal seconds. I let them all feel the weight of what she had just said. I didn't look at Julian. I didn't acknowledge her friends. I looked directly into my wife's eyes. When I finally spoke, my voice wasn't angry. It wasn't a shout. It was quiet. It was calm. And it was the most final thing I had ever said. It's never too late to fix a mistake, Elena. I still had that club soda in my hand, the ice long since melted. I walked forward, past Julian, and set the glass down on their table with a small, definitive click right next to their ice-cold champagne bucket. "Excuse me," I said to the table in general. Then I turned my back on all of them, on the reunion, on the hotel, on the woman I'd driven here, and on the last 15 years of my life. And I started walking. I didn't storm off. I didn't slam any doors. I just walked. I walked past the terrace, through the cloying warmth of the grand ballroom, my path cutting straight across the polished marble floor. I could feel the eyes of the other alumni on me, this anonymous man making a quiet, determined exit. I didn't look left or right. As I reached the grand oak doors, I heard it, a single, sharp whisper carried across the terrace behind me. It was one of Elena's friends. Oh my God, was he serious? I didn't break stride. I pushed to the hotel lobby, past the polite bellhops and the oblivious check-in staff, and out into the humid embrace of the D.C. night. The sound of traffic was a welcome relief. It was real. That's when my phone started to vibrate. I pulled it from my pocket. The screen was lit up. Elena Vance. It vibrated again. A text. And again. And again. A rapid-fire assault of fury and demands. "Where are you going? Mark, come back right now. You embarrass me. What did you do?" I looked at the screen, at the name of the woman who had just called our marriage a mistake. People always talk about a priceless reaction. They think it means shock or sadness or even anger. But what I saw in Elena's eyes, in that split second before I turned away, wasn't any of those. It was panic. It was a raw, cold terror of a meticulously curated life spinning out of control. It wasn't a look of a wife who might lose her husband. It was a look of a CEO who just realized she'd been caught embezzling. She hadn't been sad. She had been exposed. And that was the priceless part. I held down the power button on my phone. The screen went black. I slid the dead device back into my pocket and just kept walking. I walked past the monuments, past the reflecting pools, with no destination in mind. For the first time in 15 years, I wasn't her prop. I wasn't her sweet compromise. I was just me, and I was finally completely, wonderfully free. I found out later, through the eventual chaos of lawyers and proceedings, what happened when Elena finally came back. She didn't return to room until almost 2 in the morning. She wasn't sad or worried. She was furious. Her perfect reunion, her triumphant return, had been completely detonated. By me. She told her lawyer I had humiliated her. She'd spent the last few hours putting out the fire, assuring Julian and her friends that I was just overstressed and melodramatic. She had been rehearsing the speech she was going to give me, the towering, righteous wave of anger she was going to unleash. She slammed her key card into the door, ready for the fight of her life. The lights flickered on to an empty room. I'm sure she stopped, confused. She probably checked the bathroom first, expecting me to be sulking. But the lights were off. She would have called my name. Mark. Not with concern. With annoyance. "Mark, this isn't funny." Silence. She would have walked to the closet, the one we were supposed to share. She had pulled the door open and found nothing. My suit bag was gone. My shoes weren't on the floor. My overnight bag wasn't on the luggage rack. The hangers on my side were all empty. She'd have gone back to the bathroom. My toothbrush wasn't there. My dop kit was gone. This wasn't a walk to cool off. This was an exit. And then she saw it, sitting in the precise center of the polished mahogany desk, catching the light from the hallway. It was my room key card. And lying directly on top of it was our joint Amex Platinum, the one with my name as the primary account holder, the one that funded her Rittenhouse expansion. It was cut cleanly, perfectly, into 2 pieces. The fight she had prepared for died in her throat. The anger was gone, replaced by that same cold, creeping panic she felt on the terrace. This wasn't an argument. This was a reckoning. The room was silent. She was completely, utterly alone. She must have broken every speed limit driving back to Philadelphia. I picture her slamming the Lexus in the park, storming up the walkway of our quiet suburban home, still radiating a mix of fury and pure panic. She was probably expecting to find me sitting in the dark, stewing, ready for the real confrontation. She was ready for tears, for yelling, for a long, drawn-out fight she knew she could win. The front door slammed open. Mark. But the house didn't answer. It was wrong. It wasn't just quiet. It was empty. The air was still. My running shoes weren't by the door. My laptop bag wasn't on the hall table. The scent of my Saturday morning coffee was gone. Mark, I swear to God. Her voice would have faltered. This wasn't a house where a husband was hiding in his office. This was a house that was already a museum. She walked into the kitchen. The morning light was pouring in, catching every mote of dust. And right in the center of the vast, white quartz island, the one she had to have, was a single thick 9x12 manila envelope. It was placed perfectly square, parallel to the edge of the counter. On the front, in crisp black laser-printed letters, was one word, Elena. Her hands, I imagine, were shaking. She would have torn it open, expecting an angry, handwritten letter, a plea, something emotional. It wasn't. It was a 40-page document. The top page was a cover sheet from the most expensive divorce attorney in Philadelphia. The page beneath that, a petition for dissolution of marriage. And underneath that, a marital settlement agreement. It was meticulously detailed. It listed the division of every single asset, every painting, every stock, every bank account. It was precise. It was clinical. And it was, by all legal definitions, generous. But the real shock, the part that I know made her knees weak, was the last page of the petition. My signature was already there. It was crisp, clear, and written in blue ink. And next to it was a notary stamp dated 4 days ago. This wasn't a reaction. This wasn't an impulse. The reunion wasn't the spark. It was just the end of the fuse. This entire time, while she was worried about my tie, I had been moving pieces she didn't even know were on the board. Elena went to her own lawyer in Center City the next morning. She didn't go to a simple divorce attorney. She went to corporate shark who handled her practice's litigation. She walked in there not as a heartbroken wife, but as a businesswoman facing a hostile takeover. She thought I was trying to threaten her. Financially, her lawyer, a man named Harrison, had a different take. Dr. Vance, Elena, he said, adjusting his reading glasses and looking at the documents I'd filed. I'm not sure I understand the tactic. It's not a tactic, Harrison. Elena snapped, tossing her bag onto a chair. He's lost his mind. He's bluffing. He works for a nonprofit. For God's sake, what does he think he's going to get? Harrison stared at the papers again. That's not it. It's the settlement proposal. It's more than fair. In fact, it's wildly generous. He's giving you the house. Outright. He's offering to pay off your business expansion loan in full. Elena, he's giving you money. Elena must have paused. What? Your house? Harrison said, typing something into his computer. There's no mortgage. It was paid off 6 years ago. In cash. The Lexus you drive, bought outright. And your practice, that initial loan. He stopped, staring at his screen. Oh my God. What? Elena demanded, her voice starting to lose its steel. Your initial loan, Harrison said slowly, was never funded by a bank. It was funded by a private entity, a holding company called North Lake Holdings. I've never heard of them, Elena said. Harrison looked at her over his glasses. Neither had I, so I ran the name. It's a commercial real estate holding company based in Chicago. Very private, very large, and its sole proprietor is Mark. I can just imagine the silence in that high-rise office. The sound of Philadelphia traffic far below. That's not possible, Elena whispered. He what, Elena? Harrison's voice was no longer friendly. He works at a nonprofit. According to these records, his construction firm, which he owns, builds those nonprofit projects at cost. He's not managing construction. He's funding his own charity. He inherited a commercial real estate empire from his uncle in Chicago 10 years ago. The simple uncle we used to send a Christmas card to. Harrison turned another page. According to this attached financial disclosure, Mr. Vance's, your husband's, net worth is just north of $50 million. Her lawyer leaned back. He's not bluffing you. Elena, he's releasing you. It took her 2 days. 2 days of frantic calls to my dead phone, to my old and now disconnected office, and I assume to every friend we ever had. She didn't find me at home. I wasn't there. She found me at work, not the small, earnest nonprofit office she'd always pictured in her mind, but the active construction site of a 30-story tower in downtown Philadelphia. I saw her arrive. She'd bypassed the security gate somehow. Her Lexus parked haphazardly on the gravel. She was stumbling across the muddy plywood walkway in shoes that were absolutely not designed for a construction site, her face a mask of pale, desperate confusion. I was on the third-floor deck, helmet on, reviewing a set of load-bearing schematics with my site foreman and 2 architects. This was my actual world. The noise, the math, the smell of cut steel and concrete. My foreman saw her first. "Mr. Vance? I think your wife is here." I just nodded. I'd been expecting it. I took off my helmet, handed him the plans, and said, "I'll be right back." I met her on the ground level, next to a pallet of concrete bags. She was vibrating with an energy I'd never seen before. Not anger, not sadness, but a terrifying, raw need. "Mark," she breathed. She actually looked breathless. "Mark, what is this?" She gestured to the rising steel skeleton around us. "It's a building, Elena." "The money," she said, her voice cracking. $50 million. Why? Why didn't you tell me? All those years. I. She couldn't form a coherent sentence. She was a woman whose entire life had been built on a specific, calculated reality, and that reality had just been pulverized. "We can fix this," she said, finally landing on a script. Her eyes were wide, pleading. "Mark, I mean it. We can fix this. The reunion. I was drunk. I was stupid. I was just talking. You know how those people are. It didn't mean anything." I looked at her, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time without the fog of my own hope. She wasn't sorry for what she said. She was sorry she got caught. She was sorry she'd miscalculated. Sorry she'd insulted a man who, it turns out, was in her league after all. "Yes, it did mean something," I said, and my voice was calm. It was the calm of a finished ledger. "It was the one true thing you've said in years." "No, that's not true. I love you. I held up a hand, and she stopped. "You were never ashamed of my job, Elena," I said quietly, the sound of the rivet guns echoing above us. "You weren't ashamed that I worked for a nonprofit." I took a step closer. "You were ashamed of me. You thought I was simple. You thought I was beneath you. You thought I wasn't good enough for your world." I paused, letting the truth of it settle between us, right there in the mud. "I spent 15 years letting you believe that, letting you make me small. But the truth is, your world was never good enough for me." I turned around, picked my helmet up from the concrete bag, and put it back on my head. "You should go, Elena. You're not authorized to be on this site." I walked away, leaving her there, and went back to work. The divorce was not a war. It was a transaction. Once Elena's lawyer explained to her that she couldn't fight for assets I was already giving her. The entire process became bloodless. She signed the papers. She took the house, as I'd offered. But without my silent financial backing, the world she'd built was a house of cards. I learned through the lawyers that she had to sell her high-end Rittenhouse practice to cover the debts she'd accrued trying to look successful. She now works for a large corporate dental chain in the suburbs, a salaried employee. And Julian Hayes, the man she was performing for, he never called her again. The second the news of our amicable divorce spread, and the fact that her simple husband was the one with the real wealth. She was no longer a valuable asset in his world. She was just a mistake he'd almost made. As for me, I am, for the first time in a long time, light. 6 months have passed. It's a crisp fall evening. I'm standing on a different kind of stage tonight. Not a ballroom, but the podium at a university scholarship gala. I'm here to announce the first recipients of the North Lake Foundation Fund, a new scholarship fully endowed for low-income architectural and engineering students. The very thing Elena used to call my silly little charity project. As I finish my speech, the applause is warm and it's real. I step down and walk over to my table. The foundation's head architect, a brilliant woman named Sarah, is waiting. She wasn't at the gala as a date. She was there as my partner in the project. She'd helped me vet every candidate. She smiles at me, a genuine, unguarded smile that reaches her eyes. "You did good up there," she says, handing me a glass of water. "We did good." I correct her. She looks at me, not with judgment or calculation or social climbing panic. She looks at me with what I've been missing for 15 years. Respect. She raises her glass. "To building things at last," she toasts. I tap my glass against hers. "To new foundations." And for the first time, I'm not playing a part. I'm just Mark. And that, I've learned, is more than enough. It's funny what a year can do. The silence that used to be a weapon in my old house is now a comfort in my new one. I didn't stay in that big, empty house in Philadelphia. It was never really mine. I sold it, along with all the furniture I'd never chosen. My new place is a downtown apartment overlooking the river. It's smaller, warmer, and the walls are covered in blueprints, not just for my company's projects, but for the new community center Sarah and I are designing together. Pro bono. Our relationship, it's not built on status or secrets. It's built on shared work, late-night coffee, and mutual respect. It's quiet. It's real. We're building something that lasts. I did see Elena just once about a month ago. I was grabbing coffee near the corporate park in the suburbs. She walked out a large glass building, United Dental Care etched on the door. She was wearing teal-colored corporate scrubs, her hair in a simple ponytail, a name badge clipped to her chest. She looked normal. No, not normal. She just looked tired. Our eyes met for a second. There was no anger, no panic, just a flicker of something, recognition, maybe. She looked away first and hurried to her car. I heard through the grapevine that she waited for Julian's call for weeks after the divorce. The call never came. He heard she'd lost her high-value husband, and just like that, she was no longer a person of interest. I took my coffee and walked back to my truck. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel pity. I just felt nothing at all. Her story was over. Mine was just beginning. And that's the story of how a single sentence at a party ended a 15-year charade. Thank you for being with us on Inspiration Seeker. This story wasn't about revenge. It was about reclamation. It was about reclaiming the value that someone else tried to tell you didn't have. Sometimes the strongest, most powerful, and most valuable person in the room is the one no one is paying attention to. The greatest mistake isn't marrying too young. The greatest mistake is forgetting your own worth for so long that you start to believe you don't have any. What did you think of Mark's decision? Have you ever had a moment where you realized your silence was more powerful than their words? Let us know your story in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Share this with one person who might need to hear that it's never too late to fix a mistake, and it's never too late to build a new foundation. Until next time, be the inspiration.